The Panzer-Lehr-Division, commonly known as Panzer-Lehr, was a German armoured division during World War II, one of the most elite units in the entire German Wehrmacht. It was formed in 1943 onwards from various units of elite training and demonstration troops stationed in Germany, to provide additional armoured strength for resisting the anticipated Allied invasion of Western Europe. Its great weakness was that it concentrated the cream of Germany's tank commanders, instructors in a single unit, which risked their annihilation should the division suffer heavy losses. It was the only division to be fully armoured with tanks and half-tracks, such as the SdKfz 250 and the SdKfz 251, though on several occasions it fought almost to destruction, in particular during Operation Cobra. Panzer-Lehr is occasionally referred to as the 130th Panzer-Lehr-Division, since a number of its constituent units were numbered 130, and in most other panzer divisions those units were numbered to match the division's number. History. Formation. Panzer-Lehr began forming at Potsdam in November 1943 and moved to the Nancy-Verden area in January 1944 to complete the process. It was formed from several elite training and demonstration units. Most of the division's original cadre was drawn from Panzertruppenschule I and Panzertruppenschule II, the Panzerwaffe's major training units. These training and demonstration units were some of the most experienced and highly trained troops in the Panzerwaffe, with almost all having seen combat in the East, North Africa, Sicily or Italy, and many having received decorations for bravery. As a result of this, Panzer-Lehr was considered an elite unit from the time of its formation. In early 1944, Panzer-Lehr was transferred to Hungary for further training as well to serve in Operation Margareta, which was done to ensure Hungary's participation in the war. The division absorbed the 901st Panzer Grenadier Lehr Regiment while there. It then returned to France to await the Allied invasion as a part of the OKW's Armoured Reserve, along with the 1st SS Panzer Corps and the 17th SS Panzer Grenadier Division Gott von Berlichingen. These units could only be released with Adolf Hitler's personal authorization. Panzer-Lehr was one of the best equipped divisions in the Panzerwaffe. Its Panzer Regiment was filled with the latest models of the Panther and Panzer IV available. Moreover, all the battalions in both Panzer Grenadier regiments were armoured, as were the division's engineer and reconnaissance formations, the Armoured Reconnaissance Battalion having a company of the new SdKfz 234 halves Puma armoured cars. The division's Panzer Regiment also had the 316 Funklenk Panzer Company attached while in Normandy. This company was originally equipped with 10 Tiger I tanks, and was allocated the first 5 of the new Tiger II tanks that are not used in Normandy since it broke down en route and been replaced by 9 Sturmgeschütz, which fought at Tilly and Saint-Lô until destroyed, at which point the 316th Company was disbanded. The division's Panzer Regiment had a total complement of 208 operating tanks and assault guns as of the 6th of June 1944, plus 9 tanks and assault guns under repair. It also had 31 Jagd Panzer IV in its Panzerjäger battalion. Another unique feature of this formation was that its Panzer Grenadiers for a large part were dressed in the grey, short, double-breasted tunic similar to the one worn by Sturmgeschütz units, instead of the standard M1942 tunic worn by other German army units. Normandy, the Con Battles. When the Western Allies launched the amphibious invasion of Normandy on the 6th of June 1944, Panzer-Lehr, as a part of the Strategic Armoured Reserve, was held back from the fighting during the crucial first days. It was soon released, reached the front, and was committed to battle against the British and Canadians on June 8. It was placed in the front line adjacent to the 12th SS Hitlerjugend Division, where it defended Caen and fought several British offensives to a standstill. On the 13th of June 1944, an attack by the 22nd Armoured Brigade Group of the British 7th Armoured Division outflanked Panzer-Lehr's defences around Tilly-sur-Seulles and cut through the German lines, taking the village of Villers-Bocage and threatening Panzer-Lehr's rear. Elements of Panzer-Lehr, the 2nd Panzer Division, and the 101st SS Heavy Panzer Battalion were committed to defeating the British penetration. The ensuing Battle of Villers-Bocage saw the British withdraw to the start lines after 2 days of inconclusive fighting. By the 17th of June, Panzer-Lehr had been forced to withdraw. Like all German armoured units engaged in Normandy, Panzer-Lehr suffered heavy losses in its transport from Allied air attacks. By the end of June, the division's armoured component was severely depleted. Despite this, it continued to hold against the British and Commonwealth forces engaging in heavy fighting near the town of Tilly-sur-Seulles. By the end of June, the Panzer-Lehr Division had suffered 2,972 casualties and reported the loss of 51 tanks and assault guns, 82 half-tracks and 294 other vehicles. The Saint-Lô battles. On the 7th of July, Panzer-Lehr was ordered to pull out of Tilly-sur-Seulles and head west to provide support to the divisions resisting the American advance near Saint-Lô. The area around Saint-Lô consists of small fields with high ancient hedgerows and sunken lanes, known as bocage. The bocage made it extremely difficult for armor to maneuver and provided superb defensive positions to the infantry on either side of the battle. On the 11th of July, Panzer-Lehr attacked towards the village of La Desert, deep in the bocage. M10 tank destroyers and Allied air attacks destroyed 30 tanks, and the division's remaining tanks withdrew over the Via Canal to relative safety. Over the next 2 weeks, the division fought a defensive battle of attrition against the numerically superior Allied forces. On July 19, Saint-Lô fell to the Americans. 6 days later, the Americans launched Operation Cobra, the breakout from the Normandy lodgment. By that time the division has only 2,200 combat troops remaining and 12 Panzer IV and 16 Panthers fit for action. The operation was preceded by a massive aerial bombardment by over 1,500 Allied bombers. Panzer-Lehr was directly in the path of attack and the division suffered about 1,000 casualties during this bombardment. The division also lost at least 14 assault guns and 10 tanks. Despite strong initial resistance, by the 27th of July the German defences has been penetrated. On the same day, Berlin reported that Panzer-Lehr was finally annihilated. The seriously depleted Panzer-Lehr could not hope to halt the 140,000-man assault, and so on August 17, after a fighting withdrawal, it was ordered back to Alençon for rest and refitting. 2 battle groups, dubbed Kampfgruppe Wanhauser and Kampfgruppe Regen, were formed from the remaining battle-ready men and tanks, and these units remained in combat and operated side by side with German Fallschirmjägers. Later, when Kampfgruppe Hauser pulled back towards Fontainebleau to rest and refit, Division Commander Berlin ordered the rest of the division to follow. The division was subsequently called back to Germany for rest and refitting. Within 7 months of its formation, the division was reduced to a combat ineffective unit with only 20 remaining tanks. At one point in September, it consisted only of a Panzer Grenadier battalion of company strength, an engineer company, 6 105 mm howitzers, 5 tanks, a reconnaissance platoon, and an alarm battalion of about 200 men recruited from stragglers and soldiers on furlough in Trier. After spending a month refitting in the Saar, the division was moved to Paderborn, receiving 72 tanks, 21 assault guns and replacements, to compensate the losses suffered in Normandy. The Ardennes Operation Wachturm Rhein. In early November, Panzer-Lehr was transferred to Hasso von Manteuffel's 5th Panzer Army, part of Field Marshal Walter Model's Army Group B, in preparation for the planned winter offensive, Operation Wachturm Rhein, commonly known as the Battle of the Bulge. On November 21, the partially refitted Panzer-Lehr was ordered out of its assembly area to counterattack the American forces driving towards the Savin Gap. At the time, it has a strength of 34 Panzer IV and 38 Panther tanks. The counterattack stalled out, and Panzer-Lehr was called back out of the line, much reduced in strength. The time spent refitting Panzer-Lehr and several other units which had been committed prematurely meant that the operation had to be delayed. During the run-up to the offensive, Panzer-Lehr was kept in reserve, along with the Führer-Begli Brigade. On December 15, the day before the offensive began, Panzer-Lehr was still severely under strength, with only one of its 2 tank battalions ready for action, the other restored to its parent unit, the 3rd Panzer Division. Both of its Panzer Grenadier regiments were at 80% of its authorized strength. It had only 57 tanks and 20 jagged Panzer IV 70s by the time the attack jumped off. In compensation, it was reinforced by 2 tank destroyer battalions and an assault gun brigade. The division's armored reconnaissance battalion was its only organic unit up to strength. Wachturm Rhein opened on December 16, 1944, and Panzer-Lehr moved out from the start positions in the center of the German line. The 26th Volksgrenadier Division was to clear the way for the division, but they soon became bogged down and the Panzer-Lehr found itself moving forward at a crawl. The situation worsened over the next 2 days, with the 901st Panzer Grenadier Regiment being halted by the Americans along the road to Wiltz, and the 902nd encountering heavy resistance in the town of Hosingen. Bastogne. On December 18, the assault got back underway. The 26th Volksgrenadier Division had secured the bridge over the Klurf River, opening the way to the road and rail hub of Bastogne. Panzer-Lehr's armored reconnaissance battalion raced ahead, attacking towards Wiltz before rejoining the division on the route to Bastogne. The horse-drawn 26th Volksgrenadier had gotten itself mixed up in Panzer-Lehr's column, greatly slowing the advance. On the 19th, the division's Panzer Regiment ran into a roadblock near Neff, held by troops of Combat Team Cherry of the U.S. 10th Armored Division. After initial success, Panzer-Lehr's follow-up attack resulted in heavy casualties. Combat Team Cherry pulled out, and the way to Bastogne was open again. However, the majority of the division's armor had been sent north to Majoré to support 26th Volksgrenadier. After the taking of Majoré, a local informed Bayerlin, the division's commander, that a column of about 50 American tanks and infantry was seen moving to Longville. Bayerlin ordered his troops to halt and set up a roadblock, giving him a chance to regroup and reorganize his troops. By the time the Panzer-Lehr moved out again and reached the town of Bastogne, the U.S. 101st Airborne Division had already secured it. Panzer-Lehr was then divided, with half the division left to help 26th Volksgrenadier Division capture Bastogne, while the rest of the division including most of its armor, were to continue on to the Meuse. Over the next few days, the Kampfgruppe, helping 26th Volksgrenadier, made up of mostly the 901st Panzer-Grenadier Regiment, wore itself out in successive attacks on the town of Bastogne. As the remainder of the division sped east, it enjoyed some minor successes, including the capture of a large American convoy, but it was brought to a halt by fierce resistance near St. Hubert, and was soon drawn into heavy fighting south of Bastogne. On the 21st, Manteufel pulled Panzer-Lehr out of the fight for Bastogne and grouped it with the 2nd Panzer Division and 116th Panzer Division Wind and Foran. Assault on Dinant and the Meuse. Assault on Dinant. After a day spent on reorganizing the attack, Panzer-Lehr finally got underway. It fought its way through St. Hubert, and the road to Dinant and the Meuse again seemed open. On the approach to Rochefort, the next town on the road to Dinant, Bayerlin, who was leading his division's vanguard in person, shouted to his men, also lost Orgenzow und Heinin. The assaulting unit, the 902nd Panzer Grenadier Regiment, was met by a wall of fire, nor was the advance to become any easier thereafter. On December 23, the division fought all day to reduce the town of Rochefort, suffering heavy casualties. The Americans finally withdrew, their only casualties 25 men killed and 15 men wounded, after holding off an elite panzer division for an entire day. Bayerlin later compared the defensive Rochefort to that of Bastogne. Panzer-Lehr made 2 rescue attempts to save 2nd Panzer and succeeded in retaking Humaine, but unable to go any further. After another failed rescue effort by 9th Panzer, Panzer-Lehr was ordered to fall back. Of the 2nd Panzer Kampfgruppe, only Major Kochenhausen and 600 or so of his men managed to escape on foot, abandoning almost all of the division's armor to the advancing Allies. The Meuse would not be reached. Hoak am Rhein had failed. Relief of Bastogne. The remnants of Manteufel's strike force were pulled back for one final attempt to take Bastogne. Panzer-Lehr began to move into its new positions. After U.S. 4th Armored Division, the spearhead of George Patton's U.S. 3rd Army, began its attack to relieve Bastogne, and a corridor to the surrounded 101st Airborne was created. Panzer-Lehr was then involved in the unsuccessful operations to close the corridor, and finally the exhausted division was pulled out of the battle. Panzer-Lehr had once again been virtually annihilated. The Netherlands to Europe.It. After the failure of the Ardennes offensive, Panzer-Lehr was refitted once again, though not to anywhere near the lavish standard of its earlier incarnations. Many of the veterans were dead, and the Panzer-Lehr of early 1945 bore little resemblance to that of June 1944. The division was moved north into the Rhineland, where it was engaged fighting Bernard Montgomery's Anglo-Canadian 21st Army Group again during Operation Veritable, serving under the 1st Parachute Army. Panzer-Lehr saw very heavy fighting, and again sustained heavy losses. When the U.S. 9th Armored Division captured the Ludendorff Bridge at Remagen, Panzer-Lehr was sent to crush the bridgehead. The attack was unsuccessful. The Allies' ground and air superiority inflicted heavy casualties on the division. By then, it was reduced to just 300 men and 15 tanks, engaged in a fighting retreat across northwestern Germany. The division was trapped in the Ruhr-Pocket, and the remnants of the once powerful division were taken prisoner by the U.S. 99th Infantry Division on the 15th of April. Order of battle. Panzer-Lehr Regiment 130. Panzer-Grenadier-Lehr Regiment 901. Panzer-Grenadier-Lehr Regiment 902, Panzer-Artillery Regiment 130, Feldersatz-Bataillon 130, Panzeraufklärungslehr Abteilung 130, Heeres Flak Artillerie Abteilung 311, Panzerjäger Abteilung 130, Panzer-Lehr-Bataillon 130, Panzernachrichtenabteilung 130, Panzerverteidigungstruppen 130. Commanders: Generalleutnant Fritz Bayerlin, Oberst Rudolf Gerhardt, Oberst Paul Frey-Evenhauser, Generalleutnant Fritz Bayerlin, General Major Horst Niemek, Oberst Paul Frey-Evenhauser. Bibliography